This is the Louie T Network. Hey, either you're outside or you're
in the lab room.
Look up in the sky, it's a bird, it's a plane. Nope, it's number one. And Cam is his name. Super Cam. That's right. My man Cam Newton got what he deserved. He got broke off $103.8 million contract extension over 5 years. I, of course, am your man Louie T, and this is a quick assessment of the Cam Newton deal and all of the conversation about does he deserve this money, doesn't he deserve this money, he's a top 15 player getting top 5 money, yada, 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 yada. Let's just dispel that right now and talk about what this deal actually means. So, as I mentioned before, 5-year, $103 million, $103.8 million contract extension keeps him under contract in Carolina through the season 2020. You add that to the $14.67 million he was due this upcoming season, and you have a whopping $118.47 million contract for Cameron Newton. Now, $30 million of that will be paid to him in portions throughout the 2015 season. You got a $22.5 million signing bonus for just putting his John Hancock on the contract. You got a $7 million or $7.5 million roster bonus. And then if you want to throw in his $1 million base salary, you're talking about $31 million due to him in 2015. Over the first 3 years of the deal, this is what has a lot of people in an uproar, $67.6 million over the first 3 years of this deal. That puts him in a category, the likes of which you don't see very often. There's only 1 or 2 deals where the quarterback, because you know we're talking quarterback money here. Nobody else is making this kind of money in the National Football League. So you know you're talking quarterback when we start talking about these astronomical numbers here. And so the only other quarterback that is even in the stratosphere when talking about guaranteed money throughout the first 3 years of the contract is Peyton Manning. And that's his 2011 deal with the Indianapolis Colts that was up to $70 million in the first 3 years. So Cam Newton is breaking down barriers, and you know a lot of teams are upset about these contracts, but look, it's the going right now. It's what you have to do to lock up your quarterback, and this man deserves it, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later on. To me, and there's been a lot of conversation about Cam Newton and where he ranks in the pantheon of quarterbacks in the National Football League. Look, I'm not going to give you a list, but I can tell you how I feel about it, and I'll tell you why he deserves his money. There's the big 5, and of course, I'm talking Manning, talking Brady, you're talking Rodgers, Breeze, and Roethlisberger. That's the big 5, okay? You can't penetrate that until one of those guys decides to hang up their cleats. So that's the big 5. Then after the big 5, I call it the next 5. You got the next 5 quarterbacks in the league, no particular order, just like the big 5 wasn't in a big particular order. This isn't in a particular order, but these are the next 5 quarterbacks. You've got Andrew Luck, you've got the other Manning brother in Eli, you've got Joe Flacco, you've got Russell Wilson, who needs to get his contract next, so we'll be talking about him breaking the bank here in a second. So he'll be up soon enough. And of course, Tony Romo. Yeah, you can beat Tony Romo up all you want. You can talk about Tony Romo is this and he's that and he chokes in late game stages or whatever. You can talk about all of that nonsense. Tony Romo is still one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the National Football League. So those are the next 5. Then you got, I call them the fringe quarterbacks. They're right on the outside of the top 10. You got Phillip Rivers, and he's starting to wind down his career. He used to be in that top 10. He's starting to come back to the rest of the pack, and it's just due to age, and he's getting up there. And he can't do the things physically he used to be able to do, like put a team on his back. Last year, he started off playing at an MVP-like level and fell off the table towards the end of the season. But you've got Phillip Rivers in there. You've got Cameron Newton, the aforementioned Cameron Newton. You also have Matthew Stafford and, of course, Matt Ryan. Those are your fringe quarterbacks. They're right on the outside looking in. And then to me, the Mendoza line, and this separates all of the good, great, and elite quarterbacks from the rest of the mediocre and the rest of the league, essentially. The Mendoza line is Alex Smith. Alex Smith is as good as you're going to get from an average standpoint, and anybody below Alex Smith is below the Mendoza line. You're below the Alex Smith line. You're either a mediocre quarterback on the rise, trying to put your work in to get to that upper echelon, like a Ryan Tannehill, like an Andy Dalton, who I don't think will ever ascend into that category, but we will see, time will tell. Or you're just one of the bad teams who don't have a quarterback like Cleveland, like the Texans. Your situation just isn't ideal and you're still looking for that guy. So we'll see what happens, but Cameron Newton deserves this money, and here's why. I just told you he's a top 14 quarterback. Let's call him that. Now, where is he in the top 14? Is he 11? Is he 12? Is he 13? I don't know. You can decide that. I don't care. What I care about is his importance to his football team. You talk about all these quarterbacks in the top 14, top 15, if you want to lump Alex Smith in that mix, because he's the Mendoza line. And you want to talk about those top 15 quarterbacks. Of those quarterbacks, how many of them can you say are actually as important to their football team as Cam Newton? Now, I would tell you right now, Cam Newton is probably top 10, top 5 importance to his football team. No team asks more out of their quarterback than the Carolina Panthers ask out of Cam Newton. You can say, well, Russell Wilson? No, they run the football, they play elite defense, they ask him to manage the game. He does that with some of the best efficiency we've ever seen in NFL history. That's why he's already been to 2 Super Bowls in such a short time in his career. But make no mistake about it, his workload, his plate is not full. Cam Newton doesn't have any more space on his plate. They ask him to run the football. They ask him to be a field general. They ask him to throw the football. They ask him to pick himself up off the turf after getting destroyed week in and week out. It hurt me. It hurt my heart last year to watch Cameron Newton get up off the ground, grimacing after each and every single snap, after he just took another shot, getting up off the ground, wincing in pain, knowing damn well that he's got to go back to the huddle, call another play, and most likely he's going to have to pick himself up off the ground after the next play because he's either taking a shot because his offensive line couldn't protect him, or he's having to tuck it and run, and he's going to have to pick himself up off the ground. So it was tough to watch last year. He does so much for this Panthers football team. You can talk about the division and how bad it was last year. Yeah, it was bad. It was really bad. No one really saw that coming. But it happened, and the Panthers were able to win a division. You know why they were able to win a division? Because of one Cameron Newton. You can talk about him being a sub-500 quarterback at this point of his career. You can talk about him not winning a playoff game yet. Look, you can say what you want about Cam Newton. I'm going to tell you this right now. The Panthers franchise isn't even in a discussion where we're talking about them being one of the better teams in the league. They're not even a relevant football team without Cameron Newton. And that goes for anybody in this league. You don't have a franchise quarterback, you're not a relevant team in the NFL landscape. And so, to me, without Cameron Newton, the Carolina Panthers aren't a relevant football team. He makes this team a contender year in and year out. Yeah, their defense is legit, but they haven't put pieces around him. I would have loved to have seen Steve Smith Jr., or Sr., excuse me, be in the same locker room with the Kelvin Benjamin. And when it's on, it transforms like Optimus Prime. I would have loved to have seen Optimus Prime and Steve Smith on opposite sides. It would have brought back memories of nostalgia of Steve Smith and Muhsin Muhammad. That would have been nice to see. Nice little combination of offsetters, big receiver on this side that you can't stop, small receiver on this side that you can't stop. Good luck. Cam hasn't had a supporting cast to match his talents since he's been in Carolina. That rookie season, that wasn't a fluke. When he was out there flinging the football around, he had guys making plays, and he took the league by storm. And he said it himself, league hasn't seen anything like me before. My size, arm strength, ability to run, all the things I bring to the table in one nice, neat, tightly consumed package. Haven't seen it before. And so he's right. The league doesn't know what to do with this type of athlete, but the thing is the Panthers don't either. They need to protect this guy better. They need to get him the weapons. I tell you what, if you put him on a team like the Atlanta Falcons, this guy has either been to the Super Bowl or won a Super Bowl by now. With the kind of talent they had offensively, when they had Roddy White, when they had Julio Jones, and Tony G, when they had those guys on offense, you tell me that Cam Newton couldn't have done some damage with some talent like that. He hasn't had that type of talent since he's gotten in the league. And we'll see what happens and what kind of athlete Devin Funchess really is and what he'll bring to the table. And I'll tell you how I feel about that move in the Carolina Panthers draft breakdown when I get to them. But I'll tell you this much. The Panthers are slowly building some things in Carolina, piece by piece, brick by brick. But the centerpiece of this, the foundation of what the Panthers are trying to do moving forward, is Cameron Newton. And again, the league now is at a place where guys like Andy Dalton, guys like Colin Kaepernick, guys like Ryan Tannehill, they're getting broke off. Now, does their contracts look anything remotely close to Cameron Newton's? No, but those teams don't ask their quarterback to do the same thing that the Panthers asked of Cam Newton. That guy is legit, and I'll tell you what, he's one of those guys that goes under the radar when you start talking about, better quarterbacks in the league. You run down 13, 14 names before you get to Cam Newton, and I think that's an injustice. I'm not saying he's a top 10 quarterback, but he's right there on the fringe, and sooner or later, he's going to crack that top 10 because he's going to get the adequate weapons that he needs to take that next step. And he's going to see guys like Brady hang it up. He's going to see guys like Manning hang it up. Breeze and Roethlisberger will be on their way out. Well, who do you think is going to start to assume that mantle when those guys go? Yeah, Andrew Luck is right there in line. He's like, hey, I'm first. I hear you. Aaron Rodgers is like, hey, look, nobody gets in front of me in this line. I hear you, A-Rod. I hear you, Andrew. But I just want you to know, Cam Newton is knocking on that door. He's right there too. So when those guys exit stage left, Cam Newton is going to assume that role as one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League. And he just got what he deserved in Carolina. That's going to do it for me here, breaking down Cam Newton and his new contract. Well deserved, by the way, in Carolina. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the L.A.B. room. Come back and join me as I continue to break down anything and everything in the National Football League. See you next time. Panthers fans, forget what they say. Keep pounding. There's plenty more where that came from. While you're here, subscribe to the channel. If you want more Louie T, be sure to follow me on Twitter at @InTheLabRoom, or you can like the Facebook page at In the Lab Room. That's In the Lab Room on Facebook and at In the Lab Room on Twitter. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so.